Have you ever felt like an observer in a world designed for participants? While the crowd thrives on the dopamine of tribal connection and constant noise, you find yourself instinctively retreating into the sanctuary of your own mind. You hold complex conversations with yourself. You come alive only when the city sleeps. You obsess over abstract patterns, while others navigate social hierarchies. For decades, society has labeled these behaviors as eccentric, antisocial, or even maladaptive. But modern neuroscience offers a different verdict. What if these so-called glitches are actually sophisticated features of a high-performance neural architecture? Today, we are not just listing habits. We are decoding the biological trade-offs of the highly intelligent brain. Welcome to the Anatomy of the Non-conformist Mind, Part 1. The Architecture of Self-Dialogue. Let's begin with the habit most likely to get you labeled as unstable. The tendency to hold audible conversations with no one but yourself. You catch yourself muttering in the shower, narrating your workflow, or fiercely debating an abstract concept in an empty room. Society often views this private speech as a sign of mental fragmentation. However, cognitive neuroscience identifies it as precisely the opposite. It is a strategic mechanism for cognitive offloading. We need to make a critical distinction here, one that pop psychology often misses. According to research updated in 2024 and 2025, not all self-talk is created equal. There is a vast neurological difference between motivational self-talk, the "you can do this" pep talks, and what high-functioning brains actually engage in, instructional self-talk, IST. When you verbalize a complex problem, check the data, look at the angle, verify the source. You are not just mumbling. You are engaging a specific neural feedback loop. By vocalizing your thoughts, you are converting abstract information into a tangible auditory signal, effectively outsourcing part of your working memory to your sensory systems. This process hyperactivates the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain, allowing you to bypass distractions and process information with superior precision. A 2025 study from the University of California, San Diego, confirmed that this instructional speech significantly accelerates processing speed in complex tasks. You aren't crazy. You are simply running a more demanding software that requires external RAM. Furthermore, results from the U.S. Pointer study, released in July 2025, suggest that this continuous internal and external dialogue acts as a protective factor against cognitive decline. It keeps the neural pathways for executive function pliable and robust. However, this high verbal intelligence comes with attacks. The same circuitry that allows you to construct elaborate internal debates also fuels rumination. High verbal IQ is strongly correlated with anxiety because your brain is an expert at future simulation. You don't just see the present, you vividly narrate every possible future catastrophe. So, if you find yourself unable to stop the internal monologue, understand this: it is not a defect. It is the hum of a high-performance engine that doesn't know how to idle. Part 2. The Solitude Paradox and the Savanna Theory. If the internal world is a hive of activity, the external world often feels like a place where you simply do not fit. This brings us to the second marker: a profound, often lifelong sense of being an outsider, coupled with an intense craving for solitude. While pop psychology might tell you this is just introversion, evolutionary psychology offers a far more compelling explanation known as the Savanna Theory of Happiness. Developed by researchers Kanazawa and Lee, and reinforced by data from 2024 and 2025, this theory suggests that the human brain evolved to thrive in the social environment of our ancestors, the African savanna, where survival depended on close-knit tribal bonds. For the majority of the population, this biological imperative remains dominant. More social interaction equals higher life satisfaction. However, for the highly intelligent, this correlation is stunningly inverted. Empirical studies show that for individuals with exceptional IQs, frequent socialization actually lowers life satisfaction. Why? Because high general intelligence GA evolved specifically to solve evolutionarily novel problems. Your brain is wired to prioritize long-term abstract objectives over the immediate instinctual comfort of the herd. When you retreat into solitude, you are not running away. You are entering a state of cognitive conservation, protecting your mental energy from the noise of small talk to focus on complex pattern recognition. But there is a starker mathematical reality to this isolation: the communication range. Based on the foundational observations of Letta Hollingworth and validated by modern statistical modeling, meaningful and effective communication typically breaks down when the IQ gap between two individuals exceeds 30 points, or roughly 2 standard deviations. Consider the statistics. If you possess an IQ of 135, you are statistically rare. When you interact with the general population, you encounter a bandwidth compatibility issue. You may find yourself constantly dumbing down your thoughts, simplifying your vocabulary, or suppressing your natural leapfrog logic just to maintain social harmony. This constant masking depletes what neuroscientists call your social battery at an accelerated rate. Thus, the silent phases where you disappear from the world are not depressive episodes. They are a biological necessity. You are not antisocial. You are simply exhausted by the effort of translation. You are recovering from the structural isolation of a mind that processes the world at a resolution others cannot see. Part 3. Cognitive obsession and the night watch. This drive to conserve energy in social settings often fuels a different kind of intensity in private. The tendency to become deeply, almost aggressively, obsessed with random topics. Whether it is mastering the history of the 18th century in a week or understanding the physics of black holes at 2 a.m., these hyperfixations are not distractions. They are manifestations of high openness to experience. A personality trait strongly correlated with high IQ. But the timing of these obsessions is just as revealing as their content. If you find that your brain only truly comes online when the sun goes down, you are likely fighting a lifetime of societal judgment labeling you as undisciplined. However, a landmark study from Imperial College London, published in July 2024 using data from the UK Biobank, has fundamentally rewritten this narrative. The results were unequivocal. Individuals with an evening chronotype, night owls, demonstrated superior cognitive function compared to morning larks, scoring significantly higher in working memory, reasoning, and processing speed. Why does evolution favor the night? Evolutionary psychologist Satoshi Kanazawa argues this is a case of evolutionary novelty. Our ancestors were diurnal. They feared the dark. To voluntarily stay awake and active at night was a deviation from the biological norm, a risk that only the most curious and cognitively capable individuals would take. Furthermore, the night provides what neuroscientists call cognitive quiet. When the sensory interference of the waking world subsides, the brain's default mode network, DMN, the system responsible for imagination and future planning, can operate without inhibition. This is why your best ideas strike at midnight. It is not magic. It is unadulterated processing power. However, there is a critical scientific caveat from the 2024 data. This advantage exists only if you are still getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Sleep deprivation will strip away every ounce of that cognitive edge. And while we are correcting misconceptions, let us address a popular myth you might have heard: that large pupil size is a sign of intelligence. Recent large-scale studies in 2024 and 2025 have failed to replicate this finding, effectively debunking it. The true physical marker of a genius brain is not visible in the eyes, but in the signal. Brain entropy. BEN. High intelligence is characterized by high neural entropy, a state of controlled chaos that allows your brain to access a vast library of variable neural states instantly. Your mind feels messy and bursting, because, thermodynamically speaking, it is. Part 4. The chaos of creativity and the double empathy problem. Finally, we must address the external manifestations of this high-entropy mind: the messy desk, the inappropriate vocabulary, and the tendency to ask questions that make others uncomfortable. If your workspace looks like a disaster zone, you have likely been told to get your life together. But psychological research, reinforcing Kathleen Vo's classic findings with new data in 2024, suggests that visual clutter is a catalyst for cognitive disinhibition. An orderly environment encourages conventional thinking. A messy one forces the brain to navigate random stimuli, triggering distant associations, the neural basis of divergent creativity. Similarly, if your language is colorful, if you swear, society labels it vulgar. Yet, 2025 psycholinguistic studies reveal a positive correlation between swearing frequency and verbal fluency. People who can generate the most curse words in a minute also tend to have the largest overall vocabularies. Swearing is not a crutch for a weak mind. It is a rhetorical tool for a potent one. But perhaps the most painful struggle is the social friction caused by your weird questions. You ask, is time an illusion? While others discuss the weather. You are often labeled as lacking emotional intelligence. EQ. EQ. This is where the groundbreaking 2024 research on the double empathy problem changes everything. It argues that the communication breakdown between highly intelligent or neurodivergent individuals and the general population is not a deficit on your part. It is a mismatch. You communicate to transfer information and seek truth. The majority communicates to maintain social hierarchy and harmony. You aren't bad at socializing. You are simply transmitting on a frequency that prioritizes accuracy over comfort. So, let us reevaluate the diagnosis. The self-talk, the isolation, the nocturnal habits, the obsession, and the chaos, these are not weird habits. They are the biological trade-offs of a brain engineered for raw processing power. You are operating with a neural architecture designed for evolutionary novelty, optimizing for insight rather than social conformity. This comes with a cost anxiety, loneliness, and exhaustion. But it also grants you the rare ability to see the world not as it is told to you, but as it truly is. The question is no longer, is something wrong with me? But rather, how do I manage this machine I have been given?